Since it was asked a lot on the stream last night, let's sit down and take a look at the 2.4 runewords we do know about. It is worth noting that these are not explicitly confirmed by Blizzard yet, though they have retweeted 3 of them. The 4th one I'm not as certain about, though it was not presented by a small channel, so we'll have to see. And I would like to give a special thanks to the various Diablo 2 Reddits for compiling all of these and even translating a specific one. Now, the 3 that have been retweeted by the Diablo account are Unbending Will, Mist, and the revamped pattern. There has not been a retweet of the reveal of Wisdom by, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Sweldy, though it may be due to the format as it has spread to other creators. Though speaking of that, let's start with Wisdom since it is the more speculative one. It's also the only non-weapon runeword of the bunch, and appears to be a helmet-specific runeword geared towards ranged characters, such as the Boazon, though it does pack a number of interesting mods for the 2.4 rogue as well, with the 2 major factors being the supposed piercing attack modifier, which is 33% on this one and allows you to pierce through targets, as well as the cannot be frozen, which could be desirable with the shift to including area of effect attacks on the rogue, for example. The other modifiers on Wisdom are fairly standard, with a boost to attack rating, mana leech, energy, and mana per kill, as well as the basic modifiers from runes Pull, Ith, and Eld. This helmet is not terrible for the cost in its specific use cases, and what likely won't see as much use as helmets like Griffin's or Harlequin's Crest, it still has a decent amount of utility options, especially considering some of the plan changes to mercenaries as well as characters such as the Amazon in 2.4. Next, let's jump onto the ones that were revealed and retweeted, starting with Unbending Will that was announced by Dabrunsky, a sword-specific runeword that requires 6 runes, Fal, Io, Ith, Eld, El, and Hell, which sits in the realm of being a potential budget weapon for barbarians, player, or NPC, and has some interesting mechanics for the cost. Though the one most people latch onto is the 330% enhanced damage, which is fairly high. Though this could be variable if it matches the design philosophies of other weapon runewords, all we have to go on is the 330%. With a lot of the stat, attack rating, damage modifiers, it will be an okay mid-tier weapon, and the inclusion of Taunt makes it feel almost mercenary designed with the announced plan changes to the Act 5 mercenary in 2.4. All around, the decent damage, life leech, and what was mentioned, it will be solid, basically a really solid weapon, albeit with one major drawback: the 6-socket requirement. This limits it to crystal, dimensional, and phase blades for one-handers, as well as great swords, executioners, and colossus blades for two-handers. This means you will be very limited in your options with it, and will make finding an appropriate base for it possibly take a little bit longer, or even long enough that you will get access to something better unless you're very unlucky. Though with max sockets, it does make it more Larzik friendly though, so that is a plus. I just would have rather seen it something like 4 sockets for weapons like Balrog blades to make these bases a little bit simpler to hunt for, and a little bit more varied in our types of equipment. After that, we have Mist, which was announced by Riker, which is a bow runeword with some interesting modifiers that make it seem like a fairly nice option for a Boazon, even if it feels like a confused competitor for Faith. Costing Cham, Shale, Gull, Thul, and Ith, it is a bit more on the pricey side, though does have the advantage of not overlapping with Enigma in the high runes. The more I look at it, the more it looks like it was geared towards the Mage Zon, since it packs a higher plus skill value, guaranteed piercing, and ingrained freeze target, with some physical support for the bow in the form of concentration, enhanced damage, and attack rating, which are important for maintaining your mana if you remember to grab leech sources from somewhere else. Though a high mana per kill, in my opinion, would be more preferable because you can't always leech. The other modifiers are pretty good as well, especially the resist all, so it's going to be a good bow, albeit pretty expensive. I still think I'll favor Faith or Ice on my actual Boazons, but I could see myself putting this on a rogue mercenary for use with a strafer, provided the 2.4 buffs to the mercenaries are good enough to justify it. Lastly, we have Pattern, revealed by Macro Boy Boy. This is revived. It's a revived runeword that was mentioned during the 2.4 reveal stream, but it was also around in the early days, and as guessed, it's a fairly modified version of the old Pattern runeword. With slightly higher cost than before, it now sits with the runes Tal, Ort, and Thul, and looks like it maintained most of the base stats of the old Pattern with attack rating, stats, and resist all, but tacks on a bit more varied elemental damage, albeit at the cost of slightly lowered elemental damage, at least up front, and then includes a block rate modifier which could be useful. As far as the uses for this, I could see myself putting it on a low-level Kixin or Furysin, but it will generally be fairly quickly outclassed by runewords like Black for that purpose, which are slightly more expansive and expensive, and they have Crushing Blow and all that kind of fun stuff. That said, I am happy to see more decent low-level runeword options, and was expecting there to be at least a few in the initial launch, so this is promising in that regard, though cheap runewords generally won't see endgame use, so you're probably only going to see a handful of them. Overall, these runewords seem fine. Nothing broken like Enigma, Infinity, or Grief, and 3 of the 4 really feel oriented towards mercenaries more than players, though admittedly useful for both. I do wish that official announcement had been tied to these releases, even if it just linked the video sources, since I would rather create content for the game than spend time crawling through literally hundreds, if not thousands of content creators for maybe this is a real thing, or maybe this is from a mod. So it's kind of like, So I have to say another big thanks to the people of Reddit for being on top of these and gathering them all together, and even translating the one we mentioned at the very beginning. So yeah. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys, and I will see you guys next time, and maybe we'll have more runeword news in the future.